He's always been quiet. Scene 3. Margaret asks about it at breakfast. Not immediately. She waits until the cereal is on the table, until her sister has poured coffee, until Evan has begun explaining something about a teacher who changes the rules halfway through and then acts like everyone else is disorganized. Then she says, as if it had just occurred to her, "Did someone go outside last night?" Her sister looks up. "Outside? I heard something in the yard." Evan doesn't stop talking. "Probably the dog next door," he says. "He gets loose sometimes." "There wasn't any barking," Margaret says. Evan shrugs and keeps going. "Maybe a raccoon then? Or cats? There are always cats." Margaret looks at Simon. He's breaking a piece of toast into small, even squares and lining them against the edge of his plate. At her question, his hands pause, only for a second. "Did you hear it?" she asks. Simon glances at Evan before he answers. "No." The word is quiet, but it lands too quickly. Margaret waits. Simon lowers his eyes again and moves the toast pieces back into line, pressing one piece closer to the other until they form a straight edge. His sister reaches for the jam. "Old houses make noise," she says. "Windows shift. Branches scrape. You know how you are when you don't sleep well." Margaret nods, though she doesn't. She lets the conversation move on because there is nowhere to place what she saw without hearing it turned into something smaller. But she notices that when Evan gets up from the table, there is dirt dried along the edge of one bare heel. Not much, just enough to hold. The house moves around the question all morning without ever touching it. Margaret folds towels with her sister. She sits with Simon while he sorts buttons from a jar her sister keeps in the utility room. Evan comes and goes, entering rooms in the middle of conversations and filling them before anyone else can speak. If there's a gap, he closes it. If Simon begins to answer first, Evan is already there, smoothing over the edges, supplying the reason, the preference, the explanation that makes the room settle again. By noon, Margaret begins to wonder whether the night has already slipped too far from the morning to be useful. Then she sees the mark. It happens in the hallway. The boys have been sent upstairs to wash their hands before lunch, and Margaret is carrying a stack of folded napkins from the linen closet when Simon comes out of the bathroom first. His hair is damp at the temples. He's rubbing one wrist with the opposite hand, not hard, just steadily, as if trying to wake it up. "Did you wash with cold water?" Margaret asks. He looks up. "What?" "Your hands." "Oh." He glances back toward the bathroom. "Maybe." He's about to move past her when the collar of his shirt shifts. Margaret sees a dark mark just below his ear. Not a scrape, not exactly a bruise. 2 small points close together with a faint, blurred shadow around them, as if something pressed there and stayed. "Simon," she says. He stops. She sets the napkins down on the table by the wall and steps toward him. "What happened there?" His hand goes to his neck immediately, covering the spot. "What?" "Your neck." "It's nothing." She reaches gently toward his wrist. "Let me see." He doesn't pull away at first, which is what startles her. He lets her move his hand, and for a moment the skin is visible again, pale around the darkened marks. Margaret leans in slightly. There's a strange stillness in him, not fear, not embarrassment, something quieter than both, like a place in him that has been paused and has not yet started again. "Did somebody do that?" she asks. Simon blinks. Then Evan's voice comes from behind her. He scratches. Margaret turns. Evan is standing at the end of the hall with a hand still on the banister, as if he has only just come down and has already understood the scene without needing to see it clearly. "He does that in his sleep," Evan says, stepping closer. "Mom told him to stop." Margaret looks back at Simon. "Is that true?" Simon hesitates. Evan comes to stand beside him, not touching yet, just near enough that Simon's shoulders change, settling inward slightly. "You do," Evan says, looking at Simon, not at Margaret. "Remember?" Simon nods once. I do. Margaret hears the answer and knows, without being able to explain how, that it has arrived from the wrong place. She straightens. Let me see your hands, she says. Simon looks confused now, almost genuinely so. My hands? If you scratch yourself in your sleep, your nails would... Her sister appears in the hallway before she can finish. What's going on? Margaret turns. He has marks on his neck. Her sister barely glances. He scratches. I don't think he does. Her sister exhales, already tired of the conversation before it has fully formed. Margaret. I'm serious. So am I, her sister says. He's done that for years. Evan nods as if this is useful. He doesn't even notice when he does it. Margaret looks from one to the other, then to Simon, who is touching the place again, but lightly now, almost as if he has only just remembered it is there. Does it hurt? She asks him. Simon opens his mouth. Evan answers first. No. Margaret feels something tight and low in her chest. I asked Simon. There's a pause. Simon looks at Evan, then back to her. No, he says, but his fingers stay at his neck. At lunch, the room seems to gather around the explanation and hold it in place. Her sister tells a story about a neighbor's son who used to sleepwalk. Evan adds a detail about someone at school who chews the inside of his mouth without noticing. Even the father, who has said very little to her since she arrived, glances once at Simon and then away again with the calm indifference of someone to whom the matter is already settled. Only Simon seems less settled. He's quieter than before, not in the withdrawn way Margaret has been noticing since she arrived, but in a deeper, almost physical way, as though speaking now would require crossing a distance he cannot measure. When Margaret asks if he wants more potatoes, he does not answer. Evan says, he's done, and reaches for Simon's plate before Simon moves it himself. Margaret puts her hand over the plate. Let him answer. Evan looks at her, genuinely perplexed. He is done. Simon nods once. I'm done. Margaret removes her hand. No one says anything. A few minutes later, she notices that Simon has stopped eating, but he is still holding his fork. That afternoon, Margaret goes upstairs to make the bed in the guest room, not because it needs making, but because she cannot sit in the kitchen another minute and listen to the house smooth itself over. At the top of the stairs, she stops. The boys' room door is partly open. Inside, Evan is sitting on the bed, cross-legged, talking in the low, steady voice he uses when no adults are nearby. Simon is sitting beside him, not lying down, just at the edge of the mattress with his hands folded between his knees. Margaret cannot hear all the words, only pieces. Not like that. You just have to. It's easier if... Simon nods. Not often, not dramatically. Just enough to show that something is being received. Margaret stands very still. The room feels smaller than it should, like the walls have been pulled in just enough to make everything closer together. Then Evan looks toward the door, not startled, not guilty, just aware. Margaret steps back before he can say anything. When she goes downstairs, her sister is already setting out bowls for dinner. You look pale, she says. Margaret pulls out a chair. I think Simon's sick. Her sister snorts softly, not unkindly. You think everybody's sick. I mean it. He's fine. Margaret looks toward the hallway. He doesn't seem fine. Her sister keeps moving. Ladle, bowl, spoon. Her hands know where everything goes. He's tired, she says. That's all. Margaret thinks of the marks on his neck, of the way he stood in the hallway as if he had stepped away from himself and had not fully returned. She thinks of the movement in the yard, of the dirt on Evan's heel, of the voice through the wall in the night, explaining, until there was no room for anything else. At dinner, Simon barely speaks at all. Evan fills in for him so smoothly now that even the silences seem arranged. And when Margaret looks down the table at the two of them, She has the strange and immediate feeling that she's watching one child eat and the other fade. It passes quickly, so quickly that by the time she tries to hold on to it, it has already lost its shape. That night she waits. She does not undress. She does not turn out the lamp. She sits on the bed with her hands in her lap and listens to the house lower itself around the dark. For a while, nothing happens. Then footsteps next door, not the firm, ordinary steps of someone walking to the bathroom or crossing a room. These are lighter, uneven, a pause, then 2 quick steps, then stillness again. Margaret stands. She opens her door and steps into the hallway. The house is dark except for a thin wash of light from the bathroom at the far end. She waits, listening. Then she hears it. A soft slide, not downstairs, in the next room. She looks toward the boys' room. The door is open. When she reaches it, Simon is asleep. The bed is pushed against the wall, the blanket pulled up to his shoulders. One arm is tucked beneath him, the other resting near the edge. There is no second bed. The window above the bed is open several inches, the screen pushed outward at one corner. Night air moves the curtain in and out with a slow, steady breath. Margaret stands there, one hand still on the doorknob. She looks once around the room, not searching exactly, but not searching either. There is nowhere else to look. Outside, somewhere beyond the glass, something lands lightly in the yard and then begins to move.